For 27 years, Melinda Gates stood beside one of the richest men in the world. She smiled in photos, ran their foundation, and raised 3 children. But in 2021, she walked away from it all. The divorce shocked everyone. The settlement was worth $76 billion. People whispered about Bill's mistakes, but Melinda stayed quiet. Then, at 61, she finally spoke. She revealed a meeting in 2013 that made her sick. She talked about lies that kept piling up, and she admitted the real reason she left. What she said changed everything people thought they knew. Melinda Ann French came into the world on August 15, 1964, in Dallas. She was the second of 4 children. Her father worked as an aerospace engineer who helped send Americans to the moon. Her mother stayed home, shaping the family with steady routines and warm expectations. In the late 1970s, her father started a rental property business to pay for college. By age 10, Melinda had a paintbrush in her hand. Weekends meant scrubbing floors and learning small repairs. By 12, she was doing simple bookkeeping. Each apartment she cleaned meant tuition saved later. That lesson sank deep. Around that same time, her father brought home an Apple II computer. At 14, she taught herself basic typing commands until simple programs responded. Very few girls touched coding then, but the machine didn't care about age or gender. It cared about logic. She loved that. When she entered Ursuline Academy in 1978, the school was one of the first in Texas to bring computers into classrooms. She graduated as valedictorian in 1982, carrying a steady confidence that technology could shape the future. She arrived at Duke University that fall, often one of the only women studying computer science. Male students shouted answers without hesitation. She felt the shift instantly, but the doubt didn't last. By 1986, she completed her BS in computer science and economics. By 1987, she had her MBA at just 23. After internships at IBM, she received a job offer there. But during her final interview, her hiring manager did something unusual. She told Melinda to think about Microsoft instead. In 1987, she turned down IBM and joined Microsoft. Looking back, she said it was the decision that changed everything. She arrived as a 23-year-old product manager. Her early work revolved around multimedia products. One of her first major projects was Cinemania, a movie guide on CD-ROM that launched in 1992. It sold more than 200,000 copies in its first year. Not long after, she led the team that created Encarta in 1993. By 1995, it had sold over 1 million copies. Families used it for homework. Schools adopted it. Alongside these projects, she managed products like Publisher, Money, Works, and even Microsoft Bob. Her most difficult project, which failed but taught her valuable lessons about bold ideas. By the early 1990s, she had become general manager of information products, guiding teams of more than 100 people. Her leadership helped Microsoft's multimedia success reach nearly 90% market share. In 1996, by 2025, Expedia Group's at a market value of about $19.4 billion, with $13.7 billion in revenue for 2024. The travel site that began as a side project had become a global giant. Behind all the work, something personal was unfolding. In 1987, she and Bill Gates began dating, keeping the relationship secret because of workplace rules. On January 1, 1994, they married in Hawaii with about 20 guests. She negotiated a strong prenup that ensured she would be an equal partner, the same independence she had carried since childhood. By 1996, she was 32 and standing at a crossroads. She could keep climbing, or she could walk away to raise her children. She chose to leave, closing a 9-year chapter in which she had helped shape Microsoft's consumer side. By the time she left, her stock options had made her very wealthy. Over the next years, she and Bill moved billions into what would become the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. In August 1999, they merged several family foundations into a single structure. The foundation launched with an endowment of about $17 billion. In January 2000, Bill added another $5 billion. With that size, the foundation could reshape entire systems, not just fun, scattered projects. Even before most people were online, Melinda was thinking about who would be left out. Between 1995 and 1997, they gave around $17 million in software and support to about 200 libraries, putting computers and internet access into public spaces. By 2000, more than 10,000 libraries in the U.S. had received support. For many low-income families, those machines were their first window into the digital world. Then, Africa changed her. On a trip in the late 1990s, Melinda walked through clinics in Zambia and Tanzania and saw families losing children to preventable diseases. She came back convinced that global health had to sit at the center of their giving. Between 2000 and 2015, the foundation spent about $53.8 billion on global health, education, and development. One of the clearest examples came in the fight against polio. Working with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the foundation helped vaccinate more than 100 million children across Pakistan, India, and other countries. In India, polio was declared eradicated in 2014. In Pakistan, as recently as December 2023, the foundation helped finance a €55 million concessional loan that supported national health institutions and the Polio Eradication Initiative training female health workers and advancing disease tracking systems. Melinda also made women's health central. From 2009 to 2015, she backed more than $1 billion in contraception programs across Africa and Asia. In Kenya, contraceptive use climbed from 46% to 58%, beating government targets. Researchers estimated the work led to about 80 million fewer unintended pregnancies and 111,000 fewer maternal deaths across Africa. In 2016, she and Bill received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. France awarded her the Legion of Honor. A woman who had once quietly shipped software from a cubicle was now one of the most influential figures in modern philanthropy. While her public work grew, her private life was becoming more complicated. In 2017, a woman who worked at a bike shop, partly owned by a firm tied to the Gates family, accused Bill's longtime money manager of sexual harassment. Melinda pushed for an outside investigation. She demanded accountability, a shift from quietly absorbing problems to forcing them into the light. Then, in 2019, Microsoft's board began investigating Bill. A female engineer alleged a long relationship with him that started in 2000, while he was still chairman. While Bill said he left the board in March 2020 to focus on philanthropy, people close to the situation said the investigation played a major role. The story emerged during the height of #MeToo. It chipped away at the public image of the careful, disciplined engineer and deepened the emotional storm inside Melinda's life. Another source of pain was Bill's connection with Jeffrey Epstein. In September 2013, Melinda accompanied Bill to Epstein's townhouse in New York. She later said the visit made her feel sick. She described Epstein as evil personified and regretted ever walking through his door. When she learned that Bill continued to meet with Epstein after that, she became furious. Bill would later admit that meeting Epstein was a huge mistake. But by then, his association with a convicted sex offender had become a major crack in their marriage. In April 2019, she published her book The Moment of Lift, making a strong case for lifting up women. On the surface, it read like a confident call for equality. Behind the scenes, she was dealing with panic and nightmares. Writing the book forced her to confront how much of herself she had set aside. Later that same year, during a trip to New Mexico, the pressure finally broke through. Friends say Melinda suffered what felt like a vivid nightmare while awake, a kind of breakdown that showed just how deep the damage had gone. When she returned from New Mexico in late 2019, she began serious divorce talks. She and Bill quietly separated while lawyers worked behind the scenes. The public announcement in May 2021 stunned the world. After 27 years of marriage, they declared their relationship irretrievably broken. The settlement became one of the largest in history. Melinda received assets worth around $76 billion. In August 2021, the divorce was finalized. Soon after, she pledged $1 billion over 2 years for women's health and empowerment. In interviews, Melinda began speaking openly about the emotional cost. She talked about Bill's infidelities, including the affair with a Microsoft employee that triggered the board investigation. She described losing her sense of self for more than a decade while standing beside one of the most powerful men in the world. Therapy helped her slowly rebuild her identity. In her words, Epstein remained the final straw. She had warned Bill early. When he continued to meet with Epstein, even after the financier's death in 2019, it signaled that they did not share the same boundaries or judgment. In May 2024, another break became official. Melinda stepped down from the Gates Foundation, leaving Bill as sole chair. For more than 20 years, she had helped build and guide the institution that carried both their names. Now she was walking away to concentrate fully on her own path. Her departure raised questions about the foundation's future, and highlighted how few women had ever held that kind of power in global philanthropy. In 2025, Melinda's voice became even more personal. She released a memoir in April titled The Next Day. In it, she looked back on her college years, her time at Microsoft, motherhood, and the long unraveling of her marriage. She wrote plainly that the divorce was necessary because honesty and trust had broken down. She described intimacy as impossible when dishonesty sits in the middle of a relationship. She wrote about panic attacks and nightmares and how therapy taught her to respond to betrayal without betraying herself. She also revealed that the separation played out in secret for more than a year before the world knew anything. Around the same time, she went on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and spoke directly to millions of viewers. She said she had to leave the marriage because there was not enough honesty to sustain real trust. She explained how therapy had helped her keep her integrity and confirmed that she was now in a pretty great relationship. Watching her talk, people saw a woman who had lived inside one of the most high-profile partnerships in the world, and then walked away to define herself on her own terms. By mid-2025, Melinda's financial picture remained enormous, with an estimated net worth near $15.2 billion. Through Pivotal Ventures, the company she created in 2015, she had put hundreds of millions into more than 150 organizations, ranging from tech startups to media projects and political efforts aimed at increasing women's representation. Her guiding idea was simple: if more women controlled more resources and power, the world would change faster. In February 2026, Melinda made headlines again when she announced a new $500 million initiative focused on women's mental health and economic security in post-pandemic recovery. Speaking at a summit in New York, the initiative partners with local organizations in India, Kenya, and the United States to provide mental health services, job training, and childcare support. She has also spoken publicly about her relationship with her children, Jennifer, Rory, and Phoebe, and how they have supported her through the divorce. In a March 2026 interview with Vanity Fair, she said, "They saw their mother struggle and then rebuild. That's the lesson I wanted to give them. Not that marriage is forever, but that your integrity is." So, what was the real reason? She has also pointed to a moment in 2013, the Epstein townhouse visit, as the beginning of the end. "I felt sick," she said, "and when I found out he kept meeting with him, I knew something was deeply wrong. Not just with him, but with us." At 61, Melinda Gates is no longer defined by her marriage. She is a philanthropist, an author, an advocate, and a woman who walked away from $76 billion to save herself. Her story has become less about being the wife of a famous founder and more about a woman who rebuilt herself after a public and private storm. She has shown millions of women that it is never too late to choose honesty over comfort, integrity over image, and yourself over a story that no longer fits. And that, she says, is the real reason she left. Not for the money, not for the headlines, but because staying meant losing the one thing she couldn't afford to give up: herself.